I exposed my sister's secret after she got crazy over money. Throwaway because my main account is too linked to my family. So I, 28F, was in a rough place about a year ago. Everything that could go wrong did. I lost my job due to a round of brutal downsizing. My ex, who I'd stupidly co signed a loan with, bailed and left me buried in debt. I was barely scraping by on freelance gigs, the odd DoorDash shift, and surviving off caffeine and stale ramen noodles. Some nights I debated between putting gas in my car or buying groceries. It was survival mode, plain and ugly. I wasn't asking anyone for money. I've never liked feeling like a burden, but that kind of financial desperation has a way of slowly hollowing you out. You lose sleep. You lose dignity. You lose the part of you that believed everything would just work out. That's when Emily, 30F, my older sister, reached out. Emily and I have always been different. She's type A, tightly wound, and practically bleeds Pinterest. Aesthetic, valedictorian, married to a guy in tech, two perfect kids, Caspian and Lilu, who wear matching linen outfits and call almond butter treat spread. Her house looks like an influencer's vision board. Meanwhile, I was unemployed and sleeping under 3 blankets because I couldn't afford to turn the heat on. We weren't close, but out of nowhere, she texted, "I've been thinking about you. Do you need some help getting back on your feet? I can spot you 5K, no strings attached. You don't have to pay me back unless you really want to. Just focus on surviving." I broke down crying. When someone offers you that kind of lifeline when you're drowning, you don't just take it, you cling to it. I thanked her every possible way. I sent a bouquet, wrote an email that probably sounded like a Hallmark card. I was so overwhelmed by her kindness that I felt hopeful for the first time in months. At first, things were actually good. She texted more often, asked how I was doing. I felt like maybe we were building a real sister relationship. I'd update her whenever I got a gig or had a promising interview. But the tone shifted quickly. It started small. "How are you spending the money?" Then, "Why are you ordering takeout? You should just cancel that." I posted something silly like treating myself to Thai after a long day, and she replied, "Maybe don't spend money you didn't earn." That hit me like a slap to the face. The judgment, the condescension. It wasn't support anymore, it was surveillance. Then came the phone calls. Every few days she'd check in, but not out of concern. Her questions were like pop quizzes. "How many jobs did you apply to today?" I'd say 10. She'd scoff. "Well, clearly your best hasn't worked so far." I started dreading her calls. It felt like I had a parole officer, not a sister. But the breaking point was dinner at her house. She invited me over, just me, her, and her husband, and it felt like a nice gesture. A homemade meal, some wine, a bit of normalcy. But after dessert, she pulled out her phone and said brightly, "So I made a spreadsheet of your spending, based on your Venmo and bank account. Want to go over it together?" My stomach dropped. I felt frozen. She'd asked for my banking info when she transferred the money, and I, like an idiot, assumed it was a one-time login. Instead, she'd been tracking everything I bought, where, how often. I felt completely exposed. I said, "Emily, this is incredibly invasive." She didn't flinch. "I just want to make sure my investment isn't being wasted." Her investment. That word stuck to me like rot. I didn't know whether to cry or scream. I left shortly after, shaking. 3 months later, I landed a decent job. Not glamorous, but stable and decent paying. I called to thank her again and offered to send $200 a month as a gesture, even though she'd originally said repayment wasn't necessary. And that's when she snapped. She said she needed the full $5,000 immediately due to financial burdens. When I reminded her of her original promise, she got nasty. That was then. Things have changed. I said I couldn't just conjure 5K overnight. Her reply? "Then you'll be hearing from my lawyer." I thought she was bluffing. She wasn't. A week later, she showed up at my job, in the lobby, holding a giant manila envelope like she was handing out divine punishment. I was called out by a coworker who said, "Your sister's here with some guy in a suit?" I felt my blood run cold. The envelope? a formal demand letter. Not a full-blown lawsuit, but one legal step away. She'd had an actual lawyer drafted up, demanding full repayment. Later that day, my boss pulled me into his office and gently asked if everything was okay. I stammered something about family drama and misunderstandings, but he looked concerned. It was humiliating. I walked home that night in tears. I texted Emily in rage. "You blindsided me at my job?" She texted back. "You forced my hand." And here's where it gets crazy. 2 weeks later, my cousin Sarah, the family's unofficial intel agent, calls me. Not to stir the pot, but did you know Emily borrowed $10,000 from your parents recently? No, I absolutely did not. Apparently, she told them it was for emergency house repairs, claimed they were in a tight spot but would pay it back soon. They agreed because Emily is the golden child and rarely asks for anything. Suddenly, the math made sense. She didn't give me that $5,000 out of generosity. She'd borrowed $10K from mom and dad, quietly gave me half, and kept the other half for who knows what, maybe debt, maybe home reno lies, maybe retail therapy. Then she pretended she had funded me like some benevolent saint. When things went south and she couldn't repay them fast enough, she needed someone else to take the fall. And I was done playing nice. Update 1. About a month later, it was my mom's birthday. Big family BBQ. Everyone was there with their cousins, uncles, and grandparents. Emily rolled up with her husband and kids like nothing had happened, wearing her soft smile. Laughing like a sitcom mom, I avoided her until she cornered me by the drink table. "Have you thought more about repaying me?" she asked, sipping a La Croix like this was just normal sister talk. I didn't even hesitate. I said loud enough for the nearby group of relatives to hear, "Yeah, I thought about how you borrowed $10K from mom and dad. Gave me half like it was your own gift and then tried to sue me. When your little financial lies caught up to you, does your husband even know where that money went?" Her face drained completely. She hissed, "Keep your voice down." I didn't. I turned and said to the entire table, "Just so we're clear, Emily borrowed 10 grand from our parents, gave me half to look like a generous savior, and then tried to publicly humiliate me when I didn't pay it back fast enough. All while pretending it was her own money." Silence. My dad blinked. "Wait, what?" I spelled it out, all of it. From the bank snooping to the demand letter to the debt she'd hidden from everyone, even her own husband. Emily stormed out. Her husband followed, face like thunder. Final update. The aftermath was nuclear. My parents were livid, not at me, at her. She'd specifically told them the money wasn't for anyone else. They demanded full repayment in 60 days. No extensions, no soft spots. Her husband? Yeah, he didn't know any of it. He thought their finances were fine and that the money had gone into a busted HVAC. When he found out she'd laundered the favor through me, he exploded. Their whole perfect couple image shattered. Rumor is they're on a break. She moved back in with my parents for now. The group chat has been quiet. As for me, I kept my job, started building back up, saved a little, and last week, I mailed her a check for $200 with a sticky note on it that said, "Since you love spreadsheets so much, maybe use this one to balance your own budget." Do I feel guilty? Sometimes. For about 5 minutes. Then I remember she was willing to jeopardize my job, my reputation, and my peace of mind, all to cover a lie. She handed me a gift, then tried to weaponize it when things got inconvenient. If someone hands you a life preserver, just so they can later shove you under and scream, "You owe me," they're not a hero. They're a manipulator in a mask. That's all for today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.